rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. Had a bunch of things happen today in the news, so much so that I'm probably not going to get to everything that I want to talk about, but that's okay. It happens. Some of it might end on the cutting room floor. I may bring some of it back tomorrow, but we'll just have to see what's happening. All right. First things first. Let's go ahead and get things kicked off with the judge. That's right. Judge Wild is up tonight on the Pledge of Allegiance. So, if you are of mind, please stand, remove your hat if you're wearing one like me, and place your hand over your heart and follow along with Judge Wild as he recites the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh yeah, hurrah!
And there we go. Thank you for that wonderful rendition of the pledge there, Judge. If you would like to hear your rendition of the pledge played here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself reciting the pledge in your style, and then take that audio file, video file, whatever kind of file that creates or that you've created, and send it off to me, attach it to an email, and send it to fans, FANS, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans, FANS, at AmericanPerspective.online. I haven't done this in a while. Let me just walk through some of the folks that I'm seeing here in the chat. Barb over on Facebook, welcome. Hi from Ohio, that's right. Welcome to the program. Again. And then, of course, we have the standard Rumble miscreants, which are, let's see, Amy Jean Viner, My News, Coco, insert name here, Bam. Let's see. We've got U.S. Abby Girl is in the chat, and I haven't seen anybody else. I don't think Amy is. I'm surprised that Amy's here. She's usually having to deal with her little pups. They're running all over the place right now, so she's having to deal with the pups, and well, let's just say that the pups are taking a little bit of a toll of her, but apparently she's gotten a couple of them where they've had their faces to the camera or whatever. So yeah, I'm sure she'll be sending in pics for the pet of the week sometime in the near future of the little pups. All right. Let's see. I don't see anybody else in the chat, so if I missed your name, I apologize. But I don't see anybody else running around. We're a little light in the chat tonight. Yeah. Anyway. All right, let's go ahead and talk about our headline sponsor tonight, which is, whoops, I wasn't prepared for that. There we go. TheFlagShirt.com. That's right, TheFlagShirt.com. Oh boy, these people. Spam callers. Gotta love them. Anyway, no, well, you don't, but that's just the way it is. All right, let's get back to it. TheFlagShirt.com is where I get you. You see me all the time. I mean, if you've watched me on Rumble or X or YouTube or Facebook, you've seen the patriotic shirts that I wear. These are fantastic shirts. They've got brilliant colors, brilliant styles, all patriotic, and you got to go and check them out. Go to TheFlagShirt.com. And check out all of the patriotic styles that they have for men, women, kids, made in USA. They've got accessories that are red, white, and blue, and right now they are running a sale. a Flag Day sale. That's right, June 14th, which is Flag Day. It is also the 250th anniversary, or birthday, I should say, of the United States Army that same day. And anyway, they are running a up to 50% off select patriotic styles right now at theflagshirt.com. Now, of course, when you go and purchase $75 or more, they give you free shipping for that order, which is a fantastic deal, honestly. But I know not everybody can do a $75 order, and so I have my own little deal running. If you want, you can run over to flagshirt.americanperspective.online. That's flagshirt.americanperspective.online. And you'll be presented with a coupon code. Copy and paste that coupon code into the promo box at checkout at theflagshirt.com and get $5 off your order. So once again, go to flagshirt.americanperspective.online, copy and paste that coupon code into the promo box at checkout at theflagshirt.com when you have your order ready, and you'll get $5 off your order. Head on over to theflagshirt.com and get yourself patriotized. All right. So the Supreme Court has handed at least one win and one kind of mediocre sort of thing for the American people. We'll start off with the Trump win. The Trump win comes from, in a 7-2 decision, the Supreme Court has decided that Trump can revoke parole for 500,000 foreign nationals. Now, what's interesting about this is Sotomayor and Jackson. Normally, you would see like a 6-3 with this, but it's a 7-2. So Kagan obviously went the other way. I'm kind of surprised about that. But the Supreme Court went ahead and basically rescinded or stayed a lower court order that blocked the Trump administration from deporting roughly 500,000 migrants from Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. The decision is a near-term victory for President Donald Trump as he moves to crack down on border security and immigration priorities in his second term. Now, the order stays, for now, a lower court ruling that halted Trump's plans to terminate the temporary protected status. And you remember, the temporary protected status is a designation that a president can assign to a person or groups of people. And the TPS is basically kind of held for people who are either running from, fleeing from war zones, fleeing from persecution, there's civil unrest, or it can even allow people to come to this country if their country had some sort of a natural disaster, a devastation. The president can say, hey, you know what? All of you, let's just say Haitians, all of you Haitians, you guys had that hurricane hit you, and we're just going to allow you, if you want, you can come into this country and you can stay for a brief period of time. It doesn't provide them with any kind of green card status. We've covered that on this program before. But it doesn't necessarily give them, a path to citizenship or anything else. It's more of just a temporary status that allows them to come here and basically live to, essentially either protect themselves from harm, or while, their country is being rebuilt from the ravages of a natural disaster, they can at least live here within the United States border. Now, they're basically, it's a temporary thing. And in this particular case, the Supreme Court stay, like many of the emergency orders that have been handed down by the high court, was unsigned, didn't provide any kind of, explanation as far as what they were thinking. However, Sotomayor and Jackson did lay out their criticisms in a dissent document. And Jackson said that in their view, the court blatantly, or plainly, I should say, botched its assessment, failed to properly weigh the devastating consequences of allowing the government to precipitously upend the lives and livelihoods. I'm going to have to hear that word pronounced before I can say it again. Anyway, upend the lives and livelihoods of nearly 500,000 non-citizens while their legal claims are pending. No, their legal claims are not pending. Their legal claims are that they were here under temporary protected status. That status is being lifted, and now it's time for them to go home. They were never supposed to be given anything. That's the whole point of the TPS designation. So, anyway, the TPS program, like I said, is typically extended to migrants in the U.S. in about 18-month increments, and it was most recently done under the Biden administration towards the end of his presidency. But they were abruptly upended by the Trump administration in February, when the Department of Homeland Security Secretary attempted to end protections for a specific group of Venezuelan nationals, arguing that they were not in the national interest. So U.S. Solicitor General John Sauer, you'll hear his name quite a bit. I'm telling you, this guy has got to go in front of the Supreme Court for the government of the United States and the Trump administration many, many times because of all this lawfare that's been running around. But he asked the justices earlier this month to allow the administration to proceed with its decision to revoke the status for the migrants, accusing U.S. District Judge Edward Chen, who was the one that put the stay on, of improperly intruding on the executive branch's authority over immigration policy. Now, again, this is yet another judicial overreach where the judiciary, which was created by the Congress, does not have the power outside of their jurisdiction, put a blanket order and said, no, we're going to put a stay on everything for this. And yeah, that isn't the case. The judiciary has nothing to do, and this is the other argument, the judiciary has nothing to do with setting immigration policy. They don't. That is 100% solely in the hands of Congress, which creates the policy, and the presidency, which enforces said policy. And right now, what is supposed to be enforced is the Immigration and Naturalization Act, which basically says if you've come here illegally, you are to be deported. End of story. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. If you end up in an asylum status, that is slightly different. However, even that isn't guaranteed. And that is based upon the choices of the president as well, and the immigration law. So, again, Sauer told the High Court that this district court's reasoning is untenable, adding that the program implicates particularly discretionary, sensitive, and foreign policy-laden judgments of the executive branch regarding immigration policy. So, anyway, this particular case came up after the Supreme Court also allowed the Trump administration earlier this month to revoke the protected status of the 350,000 Venezuelan migrants. All of this is, again, coming back to the whole point of the federal courts. These courts, the people bringing these suits are shopping. They're trying to find sympathetic judges. They find a sympathetic judge. They bring the case. The sympathetic judge says, oh, I'm so full of myself, even though I don't have the authority to do this. Of course, they don't say that. But they just say, no, we're just going to blanket cover. You can't do it. Yeah, no, that's not the case, folks. And sooner or later, these cases like these, and all of these cases, I think there was 39 of them or 37 of them at one point, they're going to have to get answered. They're going to have to get resolved by either the Supreme Court or Congress. Because Congress can actually do something about this, because Congress is the one that set up the lower courts. So Congress, in theory, could go and write a law that basically says, hey, federal judges can only affect things within their district. They cannot do any kind of blanket orders or anything along those lines. We leave that to the Supreme Court, which is the constitutionally built court. And therefore, they're the only ones with the authority to rein in the presidency. There you go. There's your bill. There's your bill. Hey, some Republican pick up this program and there you go. Write that bill. That'll take care of it. All right. The second decision, which this is kind of interesting. So this second decision, they limited the authority of judges to actually block infrastructure projects due to environmental concerns. Now, this is, in my mind, this might be an indication as to where the Supreme Court might be headed once those other cases that I was just talking about come into their realm, meaning that they might be leaning towards the whole idea of, at least the majority anyway, the whole idea of, you guys down at the district court level, you're doing stuff that you possibly can't do. This isn't your constitutional authority to be able to do this. We already know that Alito and Clarence Thomas and, believe it or not, Gorsuch have already written and indicated that their opinion is of the general consensus that, yeah, a district court judge can't issue a federal blanket stay on stuff or temporary restraining orders or any of that stuff, that it is only supposed to affect the individuals or the individual in the case. And they've already kind of said this. What's going to be interesting, though, is seeing the opinion that comes out based off of the birthright citizenship executive order, because that one seemed to kind of trigger some questioning out of the justices as it was going on, not so much on the constitutionality of birthright citizenship, but more of, can the lower courts actually do this? So that opinion is I think, going to clarify a lot of this and maybe kick all of this stuff to the curb. However, that being said, 8-0 was the split. 8-0. So 8 justices. The only justice that didn't, and I'm trying to find it. Where is it? They issued it in an 8-0 decision. Yeah. Neil Gorsuch on this one took no part in consideration of the case. So that's why the number is off. The Gorsuch just said, okay, I'm not going to take part. So Kavanaugh wrote most of the opinion, or I think it was part of the opinion. But anyway, the original case was related to the National Environmental Policy Act, the NEPA, and the requirement for environmental impact statements in infrastructure projects to be supported by the federal government. And Kavanaugh wrote in the opinion of the court that NEPA does not allow the courts, under the guise of judicial review of agency compliance with NEPA, to delay or block agency projects based on environmental effects of other projects that are separate from the project at hand. What I think they were trying to do, whoever this person was in the original case, they were attempting to try and block because they had other environmental impact statements that may have conflicted. And they basically said, well, because all of these are conflicting, we're just going to block everything. And the judge basically was like, okay, we're going to block everything. And the court said, no, you can't. Courts, the opinion continued here, courts should afford substantial deference and should not micromanage those agency choices as long as they fall within the broad zone of reasonableness. Like I was saying, this might be a little bit of an indication that they may be saying, hey, judicial folks, you're overstepping your boundaries here. And that might be an indication as to which way they're going to go with some of these other choices. Now, Kavanaugh went on to state that agencies should not be expected to consider the environmental impact of any project aside from the one that they're working on, even if the environmental impacts might extend outside the geographical territory of the project or materialize later in time. So the court ruled that the fact that the project might foreseeably lead to the construction or an increased use of a separate project does not mean that the agency must consider that separate project's environmental effects. So, yeah. Anyway, Roberts, Thomas, Alito, and Amy Coney Barrett joined in Kavanaugh's opinion for all of this. So, yeah, this is just, it's kind of an indication, maybe, I don't know, but kind of an indication that something might happen with that whole government or judicial overreach in terms of things like the birthright citizenship executive order. All right. So something else that pissed the left off today, especially the people in the Senate, Pam Bondi. She's the Attorney General. She eliminates the American Bar Association's role in vetting judicial nominees. She said the association no longer functions as a fair arbiter of nominees' qualifications. Well, considering the types of judicial nominees that we've had over the course of the last 10 years, I would tend to agree. I would tend to agree with that assessment. And so she has ended that role of the ABA. She sent a letter to the ABA president, William Bay, that says the association no longer functions as a fair arbiter of nominees' qualifications, and its ratings invariably and demonstrably favor nominees put forth by Democratic administrations. Well, we all know that the ABA is made up of, I believe it's made up of like university professors and things like that. And so, yeah, the whole thing is bending toward the left. And we've even seen supposedly conservative justices and judges, Amy Coney Barrett as a perfect example, or Ketanji Brown Jackson as an example. I'm sorry, but the minute that she basically said that she could not define what a woman was because she wasn't a biologist, if we had a sensible Senate, they would have banned her immediately. They would have been just like, okay, questioning's over. Thank you very much for your time. Get the hell out. Next. Because there is no way that I personally want a judge sitting on a bench who can't tell me literally what a basic biological person is. Give me basic biology. I'm not talking about, understanding the mitochondrial DNA and all these other things. No. This person should have been able to just say, well, here's my definition of a woman, and been able to move on from that and not been in this wrapped up in this whole, leftist loss of sanity and talk about things like, well, I'm not a biologist, so I can't tell you what a woman is. That to me was like the stupidest answer that could possibly have been done. But anyway, Anyway, so now she also continued, Pam Bondi also continued and said that the association has refused to fix the bias in its rating process, and that the Department of Justice will stop directing nominees to provide waivers that let the ABA access non-public information on the nominees, including any bar records. Nominees will also neither respond to ABA surveys nor sit for interviews with the association. She wrote on social media platform X, the American Bar Association has lost its way, and we do not believe it serves as a fair arbiter of judicial nominees. This is a good thing, folks. I'm just going to tell you this right now. This is a good thing. Okay. And, you know, this entire idea that you can have a left-leaning organization who is supposed to be essentially a nonpartisan group, and yet every single judge that they have put forth has done stupid crap and said stupid crap, like Ketanji Brown Jackson, as an example. You know, this isn't the way to go. We need to get away from the idea. We need to hire the most qualified person, not the one that checks the right boxes, not the one that satisfies the DEI requirements or anything else, but the right person, the person who has the knowledge, experience, and capabilities to be able to perform and function in whatever position it is that we are looking for. And if it happens to be a judge, they need to be nonpartisan, they need to be non-woke following, and they need to have some type of judicial background, I would imagine. Those kinds of things should all play into the decision. Not necessarily being a defining moment, but play into the decision for all of that. All right. Before I move on to my next topic, let me tell you about, this is a new one for us here on the program. This is called New England Empire. New England Empire is a new populist pro-Trump media company. They have a free and premium subscription available that you can find, and you can find their community on locals.com. So this is New American Empire. I said New England. I'm sorry. That was my fault. It's New American Empire, which is a new populist pro-Trump media company. They have a free and premium subscription level available, and you can find their community on locals.com. Every month, they donate a portion of all of their subscription revenues to help kids who are starved or trafficked. Let me say that again. Every month, they donate a portion of all of their subscription revenue to help kids who are starved or trafficked. It's a fun community that is making a real-life impact. So when you go over there, use the code RUMBLE for a free month of premium subscriptions to the New American Empire Locals page. Once again, go to locals.com, look up New American Empire. Use the promo code RUMBLE, that's RUMBLE, and you'll receive a free month of a premium subscription to that page. Go and check them out. New American Empire, that, like I said, they have a free tier. Let's go and check it out just to kind of see. But remember that they donate, every month they donate a portion of all of their subscription revenues to help kids who are starved or trafficked. And that's really sad, but it's a really good thing that they're doing for that. So go to locals.com and look up New American Empire. All right. Well, today was the last day that Elon was in charge of the Doge team. Now, the funny thing about it is all of these leftist lunatics were sitting there, and even some of the people in Congress Oh my gosh, I can't believe how many stupid representatives we actually have, how many moronic representatives we have, because they were all like, Elon Musk is fired. He's fired. Okay, no, he was not fired. In fact, he completed his 130-day obligation, and that's why he is leaving. There's nothing that is preventing the government from hiring him back next year. See, based on the contractual obligations of somebody in that kind of position, okay, and basically, he did his 130 days. He finished out, and yeah, he's leaving his position. Basically, because he ended his contractual obligation. I mean, that's pretty much what it is. So he's not fired. He's not being, nothing else, whatever. Well, here in Breitbart, okay, a Democrat representative, Subramaniam, yeah, let's say that name 5 times fast, Subramanyam. He says that Musk likely committed crimes, and once in power, Dems will investigate. Well, here's a good reason to not vote Democrat in 2026 or in 2028 or ever again. So he is claiming, this representative is claiming that the Musk and the Department of Government Efficiency committed some sort of a crime. Well, I hate to tell you this, but no. How could they have committed a crime necessarily when they were doing the president's bidding under a Obama-created office? That's right. Obama created the office through which Trump was able to utilize to create the Doge effect. And, yeah. So, this guy, here's what he said is, he goes, yeah. So he was asked on this, on Thursday on MSNBC's The Weeknight on Thursday. The co-host Simone Sanders was asking him about Elon Musk, asked him, a bunch of different questions. Like, she asked or mentioned this entire freaking paragraph, I'm telling you, rather than just like asking a very concise question, which they can't ask because, they have to frame it. They have to frame the question in the right way. And so this Dem representative says, yeah, and I heard he's on some image repair tour. I think the best way for him to repair his image is to reverse all the damage he did to our government, to the American people. He didn't do damage to the government or the American people. What damage did he do other than expose what the federal government's been doing? Anyway, so he apparently also took issue with the fact that they installed servers within the White House complex. And he goes, yeah, those servers are a big issue. Really? Really? They're a big issue. I would think that having a private server like the Clintons had, Ms. Clinton or Mrs. Clinton in particular, had a private email server. I think you should have taken more exception to that than this server, which was commissioned by the president under the Office of Presidential Personnel. And, yeah, there you go. And, was stuck in. It's like, really? Come on. You're just another moron basically trying to like throw out this entire thing because he wants to sound like he's highly educated and intelligent, which he's not. Anyway, he says, yeah, those servers are a big issue. We want to continue to investigate that. And certainly, I think some crimes may have been committed over the past 3 or 4 months. and they are going to come to light one way or the other, even if it takes us getting into power again, but we will subpoena people and find out. Really? Yeah. Yeah. I just, I don't know what to tell you, dude. They were put in place by the president under a executive order creating this office that was originally put in because Trump just kind of usurped the Obama order, creating this digital office thing or whatever. But anyway, these people, they're just so damn stupid. I'm sorry. They just are. They are so damn dumb. I can't even imagine being this level of stupid. I put out a meme today that basically had a picture of what was essentially a drawing, quote unquote, black and white drawn image of Clint Eastwood, where he's sitting on his front porch like he was in the movie Gran Torino. And he's sitting there, and it's like, it said something to the lines of, when that moment when you look out and you realize that these people are so dumb, and then you wonder how they could fit that much dumb into those bodies. Yeah, I do that with leftist morons every single day. All right. And speaking of leftist morons, here's one. So Tish James, she's under investigation for that whole mortgage thing. Lying basically on legal documents, one of them being a power of attorney. One of them being a power of attorney. And basically telling, essentially lies. One lying that she was actually married to her father, and the other lie that she was going to be using the Virginia house as her primary place of residence. Those seem to be the two big ones that they're going after. There's also she's going to call it an omission, but the convenient way that she mentions that her brownstone is not a five apartment building, but rather a 4 apartment building, so that it can sit within a different classification. Well, if you're going to do stuff like that, you probably shouldn't have a colleague, and you probably shouldn't do things to a colleague or around a colleague that eventually is going to sell you out. Not just sell you out to the public, but also sell you out to the Supreme Court of the United States. That's right. The New York State Attorney General is under the hot seat again because of the fact that her right-hand person, okay, wrote to, I'm trying to find it here. What is it? Not Bill Schur. Yeah. Bill Schur wrote a piece in Politico and basically talked about naming Letitia James her the shadow attorney general, the shadow U.S. attorney general. They're all hyping her up and everything else. But the Free Beacon is reporting that her former assistant New York Solicitor General, Brian Ginsburg, who reported to James from 2019 through 2022, wrote to the Supreme Court in a May 12th filing that James is abusing her prosecutorial powers in an ongoing Title IX case where a New York school, a Western New York school district, has over 4 disparate sexual conduct allegations to its students. Ginsburg basically minced no words about his former boss, urging the Supreme Court in his writ of certiorari to take up the case to disabuse opportunistic attorneys general like James from the notion that they can just misuse what is called their parens patriae powers. That's basically, that's Latin, but that's basically a doctrine that has used, which essentially allows the government, in limited instances, to prosecute lawsuits on the behalf of individual citizens. So in other words, rather than an individual citizen taking up the case, she is decided and using her parens patriae powers to insert the state, the state of New York, into the case. Now, Ginsburg also reminded the Supreme Court that James has a history of allegedly abusing her powers. He's cited comments from a New York Supreme Court in November of 2024 who reprimanded James for bringing forward a politically charged environmental case against Pepsi, which the court tossed. That wasn't too long ago. The same, Ginsburg is writing this, the same New York State Attorney General who initiated this action against the school district has been judicially chastised for abusing her power to initiate representative actions to launch, quote, predatory lawsuits that seek to impose punishment while searching for a crime. Where does that sound familiar? Could it possibly be that $454 million settlement that Donald Trump is appealing currently right now for a crime that was never a crime, that wasn't, or that was supposed to cover up a crime that wouldn't even be qualified as a crime because nobody really knew what the crime was, that was supposedly being covered up while perpetrating this other crime to get 34 felony counts of a crime of something that didn't, I mean, it's a big, huge nebulous cloud of nothing. Yeah. So now Ginsburg, her essentially right-hand man from 2019 to 2022, wrote to the Supreme Court and said, hey, you need to pick this up. And he also cited comments from the New York Supreme Court Justice Emilio Colakovio, anyway, in the Pepsi case. Man, I'm horrible at pronouncing names sometimes. So basically what Ginsburg is doing is he's framing James as just this big abusive bully who's been giving black eyes to friends and foes for quite a while, according to the piece here in Hot Air. Yeah. Uh-huh. Okay. Sure. Yeah. So Jake Tapper also said in his book that he's running around promoting, of course, and he basically says, I kind of think abusive behavior was sort of tolerated by the press. Yeah, really? It was tolerated. Sure. Anyway. Yep. So all of this is just going to be, honestly, going to be hilarious when everything finally comes out and finally shows up. Or the cases against this. She's got some serious problems. You know what's interesting? We haven't heard from Fannie Willis in a while. I wonder how that's going. That was the other attorney general that was going after Trump to get Trump, just to get Trump. Whatever. All right. So last night we had the FAFO files. This story makes me think that I need to now have two segments. One is the FAFO files, and this one here being the moron files. Just gotta say it. Oh my gosh. I read this headline, and I'm telling you folks, this is, I don't know where these people get these ideas. But here, and I usually don't cover like entertainment stuff very often, but I'm going to do this. I'm just sorry I'm going to do this because it's just, this is so So outrageous. All right, I know I have several women watching. I know I do because I've got several of them in the chat. When you ladies hear this, I got to ask the question. And guys, you can chime in on this too, because let's be honest, this is like everybody should know this. What would you say is the number one primary purpose of what a woman's reproductive system is to do? What is the number one primary purpose of what a woman's reproductive system do? What is the number one? Please, just throw it in the chat here really quick. It's not going to take you that long. Guys, gals, whatever, just go ahead and throw it in there. Coco de Whiskey or Coco insert name here has already chimed in. Keep going, ladies. Come on. Even guys, throw that in there. You've got knowledge too. You may not have the equipment, but you definitely have knowledge of what the equipment does. Just taking a quick drink. So far, I only see Coco, insert name here, as the only one that is answered here so far. Here we go. That's a good answer there, Bam. So here we have Coco, insert name here, says create life. And then Bam follows up and says, have cute babies that turn into rotten teenagers. Okay, that's awfully specific. Coco DeWhiskey says, bleed like a stuck pig every 28 days. Okay, I really didn't need to know that. Not something that I needed. It's like the Merkin. It's one of those. Anyway. All right. All right, we've had enough of that, I guess. Nobody else is really going to chime in here, but let me go ahead and show you this headline in the Daily Wire, and I can't even believe this. I really can't. So Michelle Obama, a.k.a. Big Mike, says that creating life is the least of what a woman's reproductive system does. I'm sorry. This is a moron. I'm telling you, this is a moron file right here. This is the moron files. What other thing, honestly, is the woman's reproductive system for? Everything that it does, from changing your hormonal balance, from doing that sloughing off every 28 days that Coco decided to throw out there, to setting the woman's body up for nothing but reproduction, the creation of life. I mean, somebody somewhere tell me where this creating another life, growing another human life inside the body is the least, she says, of the least of what a human's, I mean, seriously? Oh my gosh. So she was on her podcast or something, in my humble opinion, or IMO, with Michelle Obama and Craig Robinson on Wednesday. And she basically said that the issue has been reduced to a question of choice if that's all of what a woman's health is. No, it's not a woman's health, but that's what the reproductive does. Obama said, I attempted to make the argument on the campaign trail this past election that there's just so much more at stake because so many men have no idea what women go through. Okay, first of all, you need to define what a woman is. Okay, let's just throw that out there. But Obama continues and says, we haven't been researched, we haven't been considered, and it still affects the way a lot of men lawmakers, a lot of male politicians, a lot of male religious leaders think about the issue of choice. As if it's just about the fetus, the baby. Hello, that's all a woman's reproductive system is built for. I know of no other other, absolutely no other purpose for the woman's reproductive system. There is no other purpose for it. And here's why. Okay, here's what I'm going to tell you why. If it had another purpose that was vital to the woman's life, they wouldn't have things like hysterectomies. Okay? I mean, I'm sorry, but the entire point of menopause is the end of the reproductive life. And that's when you start having challenges and problems like Bam starts pointing out, it can get cancer, which sucks. Yes, the woman's reproductive system, once it goes through menopause, you start having medical issues afterward. But the entire reproductive system, its entire function, 100%, is to create life. To create life. That's what it's for. Obama continued and said, quote, "It's a very important thing that it does, but you only produce life if the machine that's producing it, if you want to whittle us down to a machine, if the machine is functioning in a healthy, streamlined kind of way. But there's no discussion or apparent connection between the two." Oh, yeah. And what's scary, though, folks, what's scary is the OBGYN, Dr. Sharon Malone, being a guest on the episode, she agreed with Obama's thoughts, saying that one of the things that is disturbing is that the government has gotten involved with the decisions that are personal and healthcare decisions. You know, I would agree with you, doctor. And yes, I am going to use the correct term for Dr. Sharon Malone. I agree with you, doctor. It isn't the government's business. We should be completely out of it, 100%. That means no funding for Planned Parenthood because it's not in the Constitution. Healthcare as a whole is not in the Constitution. As I've always said, you can make an argument for the government paying for the Army and the veterans, or the military and the veterans, I should say. I keep saying Army. Army is kind of a generic for military, okay? But they, outside of that, all right, nothing. There is no constitutional purpose that you can come up with that shows up in Article 1, Section 8 that deals with health care, which is why this whole conversation about Medicare, Medicaid, and all the cuts that are happening and everything else, all that conversation, to me, it's a null and void conversation. It shouldn't even be there. We shouldn't even have the programs. If you want to have a state that does those programs, absolutely, go ahead. Okay? But, yeah. Oh, my gosh. I mean, seriously, I can't... How do you even get to be on in a position where you could sit there and say, well, I guess I could answer my own question because we have a Supreme Court justice who can't even define the word woman. And she's there for a lifetime. This is stupid. Oh, my gosh. All right. Well, I've heard enough from Democrats. They keep constantly talking about how the blue states are funding the red states, that the blue states are taking care of the red states in terms of the apportionment of taxes. That's all a lie. So on and so forth. But this came out in the Midwesterner. Whitmer's Michigan. So under Whitmer, Governor Whitmer, households are struggling to afford the basics. That number has grown by 165,271 people during her tenure. Now, under her governorship, a whopping 75% of single mothers are struggling to afford housing healthcare, food, transportation, and taxes. Seriously? So, so these people are basically talking about money being tight everywhere and so on and so forth. These people's situations are not unique. It's based on 2023 data from a 2025 United for Alice report, recently released by the Michigan Association of United Ways. That number is also up 2% from the year prior. Statewide, it said 41% of Michigan's 4.1 million households struggle to afford a survival budget, which includes 2,359 more than what was there in 2022. So for all this talk about the blue states being the most prosperous and they're the ones making the most money, here's one example where that's not the case. But it even goes one step farther than that. Here in the Daily Fetched, Democrat-led states lead in unemployment rate hikes, according to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. The unemployment rate in several U.S. states soared between February and April of 2024, with Democrat-led Massachusetts and Connecticut seeing the most pronounced increases, according to these latest numbers that came from the BLS. So Massachusetts and Connecticut's unemployment rates climbed by 0.3 percentage points. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, but it actually is. Massachusetts was reaching 4.6%. Connecticut hit 3.7%. Other states that reported a 0.2 percentage point increase include the following: New Jersey, Delaware, Virginia, Ohio, Mississippi, Missouri, Iowa, Minnesota, and Arizona. Now, you remember how I was just talking to you about Michigan having a problem? Michigan actually saw a smaller rise of only 0.1 percentage points. Folks, unemployment across the nation actually remained steady at 4.2 last month. Yeah. So any job growth in healthcare and warehousing was actually offset by declines in federal government employment. So the federal government employment dropped while other things came up. Job growth in healthcare and warehousing. So, as the Daily Fetch reported in 2022, just a year into the Biden administration, Americans were escaping Democrat-run cities in blue states due to soaring housing crisis or housing costs, inflation, and crime. So there you go. And they are still going. They're still leaving. We talked about California here not too long ago with regards to that. But, according to a report from the real estate brokerage site Redfin, Americans are now relocating to more affordable metro areas. So you sit there and you see these leftist lunatics on all of the socials, and they are all talking about how, it's just, I don't see costs going down. Well, it could be because you live in a Democrat-run state or in a Democrat-run city where your taxes and everything else, those minimum wage hikes to $20 an hour, $30 an hour, kicking into effect. All of that stuff adds up, doesn't it? Yeah, these people are just basic, straight up morons. That's literally all they are. Okay, folks. That is it for me for this evening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. And once you've signed up and signed in, make sure you search up the American Perspective channel to hit that green follow button to get notified every time that I go live. Also, too, don't forget those thumbs up, and if you want, a thumbs down. That's okay, too, if you don't like the show. And, do that across all of my outlets, whether it's YouTube, X, Facebook, and, of course, the aforementioned Rumble. Tomorrow night is Saturday, so we are 1 hour later. That's 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your evening, folks, and good night, everybody.